Hello, welcome to Video Mania 2. I'm the guy manning the counter, Duncan, and today we're going to explore the question of when the world is conflicted and tensions are running high, and Satan sends his emissary to perform a ritual to unleash hell on earth. Who do you get to stop this? A tough Chicago cop with a mullet. That's who you get. And who do you get to play this character? ChuckNorris, of course. Here's my review of Hellbound. Hellbound takes place in Israel, but the story starts out in Israel too, in 1136, I think it was, and Richard the Lionheart was doing the Crusades at this time, and the emissary of Satan called Prosatanos, get it, he is performing a ritual with this baby to unleash hell on earth because there was a lot of conflict back then, and Richard the Lionheart stops him, and there's this sacred scepter that Prosatanos has, and Richard the Lionheart breaks it up into 9 pieces, and they're given to 9 holy men to be kept safe all over the world so it can never be put together again, because the scepter holds the key to unleashing hell on earth. Now we go to 1992, and what happens here is, the world is getting conflicted again, and some greedy people a few years earlier excavated a tomb where Prosatanos was held captive, and he comes back, and he's looking for the 9 pieces of the scepter. Now, who do you get to stop this guy? A tough Chicago cop, of course. And ChuckNorris stumbles upon a murder of a rabbi, and his fast-talking partner with him, his name's Jackson. ChuckNorris plays Frank Shatter, that's his name. And they stumble upon this murder of a rabbi who was killed very gruesomely. And they stumble upon this headpiece of the scepter. And they don't know what it is. But the Israeli police are concerned about the rabbi and why he was in a rough Chicago hotel. So they have Shatter and Jackson fly to Israel to find out what really went on and to escort the body of the rabbi back. And here's where the action picks up. So they go there, and Frank Shatter becomes more curious about this Prosatanos, and he doesn't know who he is yet, but he's suspicious of this Professor Lockley, who actually is Prosatanos. I'm not giving much away. It's not a lot of mystery, this movie. So he's played by Christopher Neame, who really lets go with this role. And so he becomes more curious, and against the Israeli police wishes, he starts exploring Israel and trying to find out more about this mythology. And Prosatanos has been going around the world trying to piece the scepter back, but he needs the final headpiece, which is kept in Israel. And he eventually gets to this, and of course ChuckNorris, who plays Frank Shatter, has to stop him. So, what is this movie like? It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Well, it is. It's kind of like the Mummy movies. You have horror, you have action, and you have action comedy, and it's all thrown together in only the way that the great Cannon films could do it, because Cannon films' approach was, we'll take 2 different tones and 2 different genres, throw them together without too much planning, and let's see what happens. And that's what makes this thing such gold. And what they do here is there's running jokes throughout too. Shatter's partner Jackson, played by Calvin Levels, he's a fast-talking guy, and he plays a good opposite to ChuckNorris. And Shatter messes with him throughout the entire trip through Israel. Like, Jackson, just wants to grab some lunch and eat, and Shatter just does everything to mess with him. He respects him, but man, I think part of him just wants to keep to needle him all the time. So that's part of the running gag throughout this movie too. And so, there's beautiful shots of Israel though, and it's a beautifully shot movie, so it kind of adds to it, and it is a guilty pleasure of mine. I'll explain why at the end of this video. But the one thing here is this was the final film from Cannon Films, who was running into financial trouble. And it was only fitting that, ChuckNorris was a big star for them in the 80s, and they wanted to close out their run with him in this. And it's a Canon Films, and their presence can be felt throughout this movie. And it's really kind of a sad end to a great era of filmmaking, because Canon Films had this fast and loose approach that really came up with some pretty creative results. Some good, some bad, but it was always different. And this movie is definitely among one of my guilty pleasures. If you want to tear it apart and pick it apart, the problems with it, you could. There have been some videos that have done that, but I like it. And the shots of Israel really add to it. And it's just a great 90-minute ride, and I love it. So, does this movie sound crazy to you? Is it something you'd be interested in checking out? Or have you seen it before? I found it on the video shelves in the 90s, and I've loved it ever since. So, let me know your thoughts, and take care till next time.